and celebrate 75 years of Hall Show excellence, the leader in outdoor recreation since 1946. Go to hallshows.com. Hallshows.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A 25-point win in Houston put the Lakers 2 games over 500 for the first time since January 7, 2022. Anthony Davis had 40 points. LeBron added a triple-double with 18 points, 11 assists, and 10 rebounds. Congrats to LSU's women's basketball team. They are national champs after a 17-point win over Iowa. The men's national championship goes down tonight. San Diego State versus UConn. UConn is a 7-point favorite. Tip-off at 6:20 on CBS. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by Original Taco Pete.
It's Aaron from Original Taco Pete. Let us cater your March Madness munchies. Order with us at Original Taco Pete on Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, or stop into our Slauson and Crenshaw location. We'll feed you soon.
Hey, yo, don't let nobody else up in this booth.
Excuse me. Now that I have your attention, may I ask you this question? What image comes to mind when you hear the word homeless? Do you believe it to be solely a big city urban problem? A problem that only affects cities like Los Angeles and New York that have been inundated with panhandlers and tent encampments? What causes one to become houseless? And what strategies should be implemented to assist in helping people achieve and maintain housing stability? And do you believe having access to affordable housing should be a right in this country? Well, you've come to the right place. You're listening to LA's all-new progressive talk radio station of the people, by the people, for the people. It's KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got you covered around the clock. Racism?
We don't hate white people, we hate the oppressors, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow.
We got you. Miseducation? We got you. Gun violence? We have you covered.
If you're afraid of socialism, you're afraid of yourself.
A black-owned and operated, evidence-based alternative radio station for progressive, open-minded people like you and me. Welcome home, LA. We're all in this together. It's KBLA Talk 1580, broadcasting from the heart of LA's Leimert Park. We've got a lot to talk about.
You can't do it unless you believe that you can do it.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Yeah. 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 I like white folks, but I don't like you. All the in the hood wanna fight you. Surprise the nation of Islam ain't tried to find you. Have a rally out LA, you know what's up. Home of the ride and King Ride, we don't give a. Black students ejected from your rally. What? I'm ready to go right now. Your racists did too much. I'm about to turn Black Panther. Don't let Donald Trump win that cancer. He too rich, he ain't got the answers. He can't make decisions for this country, he gon' crash us. No, we can't be a slave for him. He got me appreciating Obama way more. Hey, Donald, and everyone that follows, you gave us your reason to be president, but we hate yours. Donald Trump.
KBLA Talk 1580. Yes, indeed. We're going to talk about he who shall not be named. They naming him. And whatever other legal matters you have on your mind, it's a good time to call us 800-920-1580. I'm being joined by a legendary, iconic attorney. He's in private practice at Douglas Hicks Law in Los Angeles. Among his many honors, Trial Lawyer of the Year in 2006 by the Consumer Attorneys Association of Los Angeles, former managing attorney at the law offices of Johnny L. Cochran Jr. Of course, now he has his own firm. And during his time at Cochran's offices, he represented dozens of clients, tried dozens of cases to verdict, everything from personal injury to civil rights and criminal law matters. Famously part of O.J. Simpson's criminal defense dream team. And aside from that, he's represented a broad cross-section of celebrity athletes, entertainers, and high-profile folks, including Michael Jackson, Jamie Foxx, and Queen Latifah. Attorney Carl Douglas, welcome.
My sister, it is always a pleasure being with you and your listeners. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. We've heard the mainstream news saying over and over on loop, this is the first time that a former president has been indicted for a criminal charge. And he's the former president, Donald Trump, is due to be arraigned fingerprinted and photographed in downtown Manhattan on Tuesday. From your legal lens, what does that mean?
Well, it's also the first time, my sister, that a former president has ever got caught with his hands in the cookie jar dealing with a porn star. So there's a series of firsts here as well. It's also the first time that district attorneys have chosen to indict a former president because there is clear proof that the president chose to pay the porn star out of concern of the impact it would have on his election. And those issues will be issues that the people of New York will decide in the weeks and months to come.
Speaking of DA Alvin Bragg, do you get concerned with the threats that are coming against him, especially since the president seems to be fomenting that?
I have a lot of concerns. I have a concern that he has chosen to indict this former president on what is viewed at best as a novel legal theory. I have a concern that were it not Donald J. Trump, he probably would not have been charged with this crime, leading to the attacks that are both unfair, racist, and political. I have a concern that the issues that are before the people, in this case, pale by comparison to the January 6th insurrection issues, to the issues that the district attorney in Fulton County, Fannie J. Willis, has before her. And so the optics, to me, can be troubling, and they open Mr. Bragg, a fair-minded brother from all accounts, to these unfair attacks that have been foisted against him.
But that's the style of the former president. Everybody gets a nickname. Everybody gets blasted, whether they're true or not true. And so, I've heard a lot of pundits saying that this is a weak case or a novel case, as you put it. And so maybe it shouldn't have been the first case. But is it up to the DA in New York to wait for the Department of Justice or wait for Letitia James in New York State?
Well, it's important to remember, and this has often been lost on many people who have been listening, that when Bragg was first in office, he declined an ongoing investigation into Trump because he wanted there to be a stronger case.
Right.
So all the allegations that this is politically motivated pale when you consider the full facts, that two prosecutors in his office resigned when he first came on because he decided not to bring the case then. One of those prosecutors wrote a best-selling book basically laying out the case that he had, which is very similar to the case now being brought. But I understand, because there's so many crazies out there in this political climate these days, the former president can certainly indict them or incite them and is willing to do so. And that is dangerous, I think, for all Americans everywhere across this country.
Okay, let's get back to the case for a little bit. You call it a novel case, and you said maybe it wouldn't have been brought if it wasn't against a former president. But I wonder, because I've seen black politicians, and I'm going back in time. I'm not talking about the trial that we just lived through last week, because that wasn't around campaign finance, right? I have seen black politicians sidelined, prosecuted for much less. When you look at this as a campaign violation rather than a payment to an adult porn star, an adult movie star, right? That misuse of campaign funds or whatever, where they've been barred from political office for life or for decades, based on a small amount of money, not $130,000, or the implication that staff or phones or something else was used in commission of the campaign that was not accounted for.
Well, my sister, the problem is, Dom, you're talking to a criminal defense lawyer who looks at things with jaundiced eyes and who questions everything. And that the fact that there are not campaign funds even being alleged in this case makes it novel. The fact that federal campaign laws are federal as opposed to state-based makes it novel. But it is clearly, the irony is, the facts of what happened are not really in dispute. That Donald Trump did pay his lawyer $130,000 to pay this woman weeks before the election.
Right.
And they paid her to keep her quiet about the election because of all of the other videos that had come around that time. So clearly, it was designed to impact the election. But it is a unique and novel theory. And yes, certainly, there are other politicians of color who have been prosecuted for less. And clearly, the criminal justice system is still saddled with the clear vestiges of institutional racism. And that explains that. Surprise, surprise.
Talking with attorney Carl Douglas, we got a lot more to unpack. You mentioned Fonnie Willis. You mentioned, I mentioned Letitia James. We got a couple cases there. And, of course, the Department of Justice. We can look at that. I also want to get some updates on a couple of cases of yours, Attorney Douglas, that we've talked about on the show before. And folks are inquiring, where are we with them now? All that's coming up on KBLA Talk 1580.
We may be LA's newest talk station, but when you're punching above your weight, it's not about whether you can throw a punch. Can you take a punch? We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. And we don't black down.
Do you struggle with occasional nerve aches in your hands or feet? Try Nervive Nerve Relief from the world's #1 nerve care company. Nervive tablets contain alpha-lipoic acid to relieve nerve aches, weakness, and discomfort, plus B-complex vitamins to support healthy nerve function as you age. Live life with less nerve discomfort with Nervive Nerve Relief. Learn more at nervivehealth.com. And try Nervive Pain Relieving Cream to block nerve pain signals at the source. Use as directed.
For the ones finding new ways to ensure the job always gets done. For the ones wearing many hats. For the ones who are hands-on, even from far away. And the ones keeping business moving forward. We are Grainger, offering professional-grade industrial supplies, plus real-time product availability and access to experts ready to answer your toughest questions. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be signs that your digestive system isn't working at its best? But taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil supports your daily digestive health using a special plant-based fiber called psyllium. Psyllium works by forming a gel in your digestive system to trap and remove the waste that weighs you down. Metamucil's gelling action also helps to promote heart health and slows down sugar absorption to promote healthy blood sugar levels. Start feeling lighter and more energetic by taking Metamucil every day.
At the United States Postal Service, we're reinventing our network to help keep your business moving. With new shipping options to deliver better value, greater flexibility to conveniently reach your customers, more confident shipping with new informed delivery features, and new electric vehicles for a cleaner, brighter future. Fast, reliable, perfectly orchestrated. The United States Postal Service, delivering for America. Learn more at USPS.com/moving forward.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Talking with attorney Carl Douglas. He is an iconic, and I accidentally called you legendary, which I don't like people calling me because I'm still here. He's an iconic attorney. And the legal jeopardy, or whatever you would call it, the legal challenges facing the former president of the United States are not singular. I think, though, the fact that this is happening in New York, it'll be high security. It seems like the former president made the announcement that he was going to be indicted for drama, but then he thought he wasn't going to be. It's widely being reported that he's shocked and upset. He's going to be making a speech tonight from Mar-a-Lago. Maybe he might be making a speech or some kind of drama, I'm imagining, on the way to or from the courthouse tomorrow. That seems like it would present challenges for his legal counsel.
And certainly you have seen over the weekend the way that his lawyer, Joe Tacopina, has been tiptoeing through the raindrops, trying not to get wet as he answers questions about the comments that his client has made. Everything, if one thing is clear, Dominique, no one can control Donald J. Trump. The judge may seek to impose some sort of a gag order on all of the participants. It is not unusual in cases of this profile that prosecutors will file a motion or make a motion, even at the arraignment, given who the defendant is in this case, to limit the scope of the comments that are made. Perhaps the judge will wait and see what happens. Clearly, the former president is using this circumstance for his own political financial gains. There have been reports that he has fundraised just in the several days since the announcement of the indictment and raised $5 million ostensibly for his financial campaign, but also keeping his name in the news and hoping that there will be a positive impact on his political campaign for presidency.
Yeah, and since I was shocked to find out you can be a felon and be president. You can even be in your jail cell if you're elected. You can actually serve as president from the yard, I guess, which would be...
It was surprising for me to hear that as well, just as it was surprising to see that his poll numbers, at least when compared with his main rival, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, has gone up in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And the gap between he and his second rival has now broadened. That shows that there's a real problem at the very depths of the Republican Party in this nation of ours.
Isn't that a big challenge? I mean, isn't that like a lawyer's worst nightmare, a client like that who just won't be quiet and just says whatever they want?
It is a lawyer's worst nightmare because there is the fear that the judge will take it out on the legal process against that lawyer, particularly when you have a lawyer who is from Florida coming from there to New York. He is basically an out-of-town lawyer, and whenever a lawyer goes to another jurisdiction, you want best to not stick out, to meld in with the atmosphere of the time. So when the former president comes in, basically guns blazing, kicking in the doors, calling everyone racist and a witch hunt, that is not the best environment that any out-of-state lawyer would prefer to involve himself.
What happens if the judge does impose a gag order and the former president doesn't listen?
There will be perhaps a series of future court hearings where the judge will initially warn the defendant about the breadth of the order. If these missteps continue, the judge can hold the defendant in contempt and can impose a whole list of potential sanctions, from financial to even custody if it got that far. That would be probably the most extreme and rarest occasion, but that would be in his arsenal of various remedies to impose or to enforce an order that he would impose.
Of course, that would be a very bad situation politically, probably, because if they took the former president to custody, that might actually make his supporters show up in mass.
It's so difficult given how upside down we are as a nation right now, how we are invested in our own individual political silos, that it's difficult for any fair-minded pundit, if you will, to anticipate what would happen, given that we are so beyond the main as we sit here today, with a former president about to make a perp walk down a hallway in New York to plead not guilty to a charge.
Right, but it'll be sort of it's not a perp walk we'll ever see, given this level of security that a former president would have. You don't agree?
There will be a walk from a hallway into the courtroom that he will be required to take. He's going to come up through a back elevator, but there will be a walk from the doorway where that back entrance is down a hallway, and as he enters the courtroom, where there will be reporters and probably photographers present. It's unclear if the judge will allow cameras inside the actual courtroom, but there will be cameras in the hallway walking in, and the former president will not be handcuffed. He'll be surrounded by his Secret Service detail.
What about that mugshot? Is that going to be everywhere?
there's not going to necessarily be a mugshot in this case, one, because everyone knows what the former president looks like. Two, in New York, there's a law that prevents the publication of a mugshot in a criminal case.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, so, but to avoid the possibility that something will be leaked by someone, there are still negotiations, but the thought is there will not be a mugshot because everyone knows what the former president looks like.
Should we have that law everywhere? That not publish, I mean, kind of...
No.
Okay, why not?
I think it's important that the public be given the opportunity to have open government, to see those that have been charged with a crime. Sometimes there are practical benefits because the identity or the picture of someone might trigger potential other victims to come forward as well.
Oh, interesting. So help me understand what happens here. I've heard, like I said, I've heard a lot of pundits saying, oh, this shouldn't have been the first case. It's not the strongest, but it is the first case. And we don't know if and when these other cases will drop. Letitia James, of course, is looking at the possible alleged financial misdeeds of the Trump organization. In Georgia, Fani Willis is looking at the influence of the election meddling. And then the Department of Justice at least should be looking into January 6th and the handling of documents, which is possibly two separate. So that's at least 4 that we know of. There's probably some other stuff that I'm leaving out. How does this work? If this one has already started, does it delay the other one? You know, how do these cases interact with each other? And it seems like it would make it very hard for his attorney to sort of handle multiple possible cases that require different narratives all at once.
It is a nightmare for whomever is coordinating the former president's entire legal defense. And each jurisdiction has their own independent bases, their own independent legal authorities, and their own independent discretion to bring charges whenever they see fit. There's not a coordination, for better or for worse, between Fani Willis in Georgia and Letitia James in New York, for example. Sometimes there is discussions between a local state prosecutor in New York and a federal U.S. attorney in New York, which was done in the Cyrus Vance administration, asking them to slow down on their work with Donald Trump, and they chose not to bring charges. But Alan Bragg was up against an argument concerning statutes of limitations, which, given COVID and other legal theories, will probably not be an issue. However, those issues kind of catapulted and required that he bring his case sooner rather than later. I think the real challenge for the former president is the document case, because there have been now Supreme Court rulings that have required his lawyer in the document case to testify before a federal grand jury about the instructions and the conversations between he and the former president. And that lawyer had represented to Justice Department officials that all of the classified information had been turned over when in fact it had not. And if that lawyer says the former president told me that everything had been turned over and he lied to me, that, I think, is the source of greatest concern for the former president. I also think in Georgia he has a real problem in a criminal investigation because he's on tape stating to Brad Raffensperger, the state agent there, that I need 11,780 votes. So the facts of what happened are not in dispute. The grand juror there has basically said there'll be people that we recommend to be indicted, and you will know the names. So I think that is another matter that probably has more substance. I would wish, in the scheme of things, it would be brought first because it would not have this salacious overview that the Stormy Daniels prosecution does have, which just gives ripe fodder for all of those speaking on behalf of the former president.
Yeah, okay. But can you imagine if President Obama had paid off a former adult film star? I mean, I understand it doesn't have as much gravitas as messing with classified documents. But do we really want our presidents paying off adult film stars? Do we really want them, violating the campaign rules if in fact he did?
Of course not. But the norms have shifted so far in the last 6 years. We don't want our president talking about grabbing parts of women's anatomy. But it apparently doesn't matter. We don't want our president being accused of doing all kinds of things with several different women. But apparently it doesn't matter. Clearly, Dominique, racism is there. And if former President Obama had 1/50th of these scandals that Trump has had, he would have been castigated and his image would be sullied and he would be somewhere under a rock somewhere. If any 1/50th of the scandals that this man has been engaged in and that we still are learning about.
Are you among the people that thinks the Justice Department is moving too slow, that they should have already brought charges and not left it to these local prosecutors at the state and city level to move on the former president?
When you are the Department of Justice and you are bringing charges against a former president, you want to make sure that your ship is tight, that your case is tight. And by all indications, the prosecutor that is leading that investigation is focused, is dedicated, and, to quote the vernacular, always gets his man. So not being on the inside, I can't say that he's not moving fast enough, but I am sure when a decision is made, it will be as airtight as you can have in a criminal setting, given what's at stake. And that's my concern with the Bragg prosecution. I understand his doing it. I understand no one is above the law. But I would hate that this be thrown out on some legal basis and the former president be turned into a martyr as a result.
Yep. And, of course, the other case the DOJ has is the January 6th case. A lot of people have said, well, they got all the little guys, but not the big fish. And so I think that's.
It's, again, the facts of what happened are not in dispute. But trying to connect the actions of a mob being stimulated by the comments of a president and then trying to interpret the after-incident work or comments or actions of someone and implying some sort of guilty knowledge is a challenging leap to make legally.
Talking with attorney Carl Douglas, and if you have a question, I do want to get, I know you have some updates to give us on Dijon Kazee and also Jamal Shakir. We'll get those and more 45 updates as well when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. There's a new bill that aims to address the lack of attention given to black people who go missing in California.
How often do you turn on the TV and you see a black child missing? Very rarely.
Senator of California's 35th District, Stephen Bradford there, Senate Bill 673, or the Ebony Alert as it's called, would create a new alert system similar to an Amber or Silver Alert, but instead for missing black women, girls, and youth. Could be another brutal week for many of the same areas left reeling from severe weather over the weekend. At least 30 people in 7 states were killed by tornadoes, and now the National Weather Service reports the Midwest from Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois through Arkansas and Texas are at risk for a few strong tornadoes. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
It's showtime. Join us at the Bart Hall Show, March 29th to April 2nd at the Long Beach Convention Center, presented by Progressive, and celebrate 75 years of Hall Show excellence, the leader in outdoor recreation since 1946. Go to hallshows.com. Hallshows.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A 25-point win in Houston put the Lakers 2 games over 500 for the first time since January 7, 2022. Anthony Davis had 40 points. LeBron added a triple-double with 18 points, 11 assists, and 10 rebounds. Congrats to LSU's women's basketball team. They are national champs after a 17-point win over Iowa. The men's national championship goes down tonight. San Diego State versus UConn. UConn is a 7-point favorite. Tip-off at 6:20 on CBS. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by Original Taco Pete.
It's Aaron from Original Taco Pete. Let us cater your March Madness munchies. Order with us at Original Taco Pete on Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, or stop into our Slauson and Crenshaw location. We'll feed you soon.
I'm young, gifted, and black. KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates U.S. Olympic gold medalist and Hall of Famer Jeanette Bolden Pickens, owner of the 27th Street Bakery, during this Women's History Month. 27th Street Bakery sends a huge thank you to the community for all its support during the pandemic, serving the Los Angeles community with their signature sweet potato pies since 1956 and third-generation baker. The goal has never changed. Keep the business thriving for generations to come. Made with the freshest ingredients in each yam peeled by hand. 27th Street Bakery puts the home back in homemade with its signature vanilla added to all its amazing products. Pies, cakes, cobblers, tea cakes, and the newest item, creamy sweet potato cheesecake. Call 323-233-3469. That's 323-233-3469. Have your order shipped by visiting 27thstreetbakery.com or stop by 2700 South Central Avenue, Los Angeles, California, 90001, Tuesdays through Saturdays, 8 to 4.
KBLA Talk 1580, covering news and breaking news first.
Breaking news here. We've been covering this every day since the trial began. USA v. MRT. The verdicts are in. The jury has found LA City Councilman Mark Ridley Thomas guilty on a number of counts.
Keep it locked to KBLA Talk 1580 for news and analysis about the things that matter most to you. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
KBLA Talk 1580, and I have award-winning, iconic attorney Carl Douglas with me in the studio. So if you want to see him, and he is very animated, you want to go to youtube.com and go to KBLA 1580. I'm kind of animated too, by the way. So Attorney Douglas, we were talking during news, traffic, and sports, not paying attention, right? And you said that Donald J. Trump will never go to jail.
It's my humble opinion that he will never walk into a prison in a jumpsuit.
No matter if he's convicted on every single one of these cases.
I don't think he will ever walk into a prison in a jumpsuit and surrender to prison authorities. No.
Would he be like ankle bracelet? Would he be community service?
He'll have, at the very worst, they'll give him house arrest at Mar-a-Lago for some time. At the very worst, I would say, after all the appeals are done, and he is older and even more frail and losing even more of his hair, then they may sentence him to some period of custody that is served in the confines of his palace in Mar-a-Lago.
So you're saying he can just keep appealing and appealing because he's got deep pockets? I thought there was just a limited number of appeals you could do.
There are. I don't think he will ever walk into a prison
that
seems
logical.
Time in a prison.
I mean, because what do you do? That means the Secret Service has got to be in the prison, and that's just a lot.
It's not going to happen that way, I don't think, even were he convicted for these crimes.
And which is the strongest case against the former president?
Oh, I think the strongest case is the document case.
Really?
Because there were hundreds of documents, dozens of which were classified. And there were months and months of efforts of negotiations between Trump and his lawyers and Justice Department officials. And they were assured repeatedly
that's true.
that there were no more documents to be received. Repeatedly they were assured.
So even though documents were found at Pence's place and documents were found at Biden's places, because they didn't lie about it and they quickly turned him over, it's a different story.
And there were months and months of negotiations because there were leaks, and there were leaks that were reported about more documents actually being at Mar-a-Lago. Donald would show off things to guests, for goodness sakes. Here's a letter I got from the Korean president.
Right.
That kind of thing.
And then we have the pictures of documents allegedly flushed down the toilet. I mean, there's ripped up papers and...
But the most important thing is the lawyers on his behalf declared under oath that there were no more documents. They got that information from their client. And his primary lawyer was just last week required to testify under oath, which is a very rare occurrence, about attorney-client privileged communications because they may be part of a crime. The crime is withholding documents that were due.
This that Evan Corcoran guy.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And we've learned that the cover-up is always greater than the crime.
Perfect example of that. And what about Georgia? I mean, Fani Willis, as you pointed out, there's tape. There was a grand jury, and as you know, and as we all know, that at least one of those grand jurors was going around saying, charges they are coming.
Well, she was the foreperson of the grand jury. And I didn't realize that there are laws in Georgia that allow grand jurors, which is normally a super secret and private proceeding, to testify. When I have clients in front of the grand jury testifying, I, as the lawyer, have to sit outside the room while the client goes in the room. So I can never hear the questions being asked. If the client has a question, they stop the proceeding, and the client comes out the grand jury room and asks me my advice, and then goes back in the room. So to be able to get an insight of the grand jury proceedings, to understand that there are multiple indictments that have been returned, to understand that the names of the people being mentioned will not be unusual, will not be a surprise to the general public, says a lot to me that Fani Willis is a strong-minded, independent-thinking, democratic politician, says she's not afraid of the pushback that is certain to come in Georgia when she files these charges in Fulton County.
Yeah, and I guess that puts Letitia James in the case against the Trump organization kind of, well, I'd say second to last, because I think you feel like the Stormy Daniels is the weakest of all of these.
But if I'm not mistaken, Letitia James is more of a civil kind of thing.
Right.
Okay?
Yes, it is.
So we're just talking about money and punishing a corporation. I don't think Donald Trump individually is going to be punished in that way. There are so many layers of interference between what are on the books and turned in and the actual client. And in the state prosecution in New York, the corporation was indicted and prosecuted.
And that guy, Alan Weiselberg.
Correct. And
his longtime accountant.
And he was convicted as well. But not even he gave the quality of evidence against Donald Trump, because Donald paid for his kids going to college, and they've been together for 40 years. So, Donald was able to circle the wagons at least to insulate Donald Trump, which I think is going to remain to be the case.
But okay. And I'm not a lawyer, obviously. That's why I have to talk to you. But if you lie to the IRS, if you lie on tax forms, if you lie and say, this property was worth this so you could get a loan, there's no personal liability for that?
In America, money still talks. I hate to enlighten you and your listeners. In America, there is still institutional racism. In America, things are not always as fair as they should be.
Institutional classism, it sounds like, too.
There is also, absolutely, there is institutional classism. And people with money are able to avoid aspects of justice that people without money cannot so avoid.
All right, we're talking Jamal Shakir and Dijon Kazee when we come forward with attorney Carl Douglas on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
All I need is one mic.
For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Tavis Smiley with a KBLA editorial. I've said it all along. Presumption of innocence, fundamental fairness, due process. Convicted now on 7 counts in his federal bribery case, LA City Councilman Mark Ridley Thomas scarcely got 1, and his chances of getting the other 2 were slim to none, and Slim was out of town. Did you hear the jury forewoman's comments? The jurors were confused by the jury instructions, confused by the answers to the almost 12 questions they sent to the judge. She acknowledged that some jurors were not even paying attention, and she said the jury knew that the $100,000 contribution from MRT was legal, but the way the jury instructions were written made them feel like they had to find MRT guilty of wire fraud. Again, those are her words. So let me offer you just 3 questions that I want you to ponder. 1, why do you think the U.S. government spent millions of dollars of your money going after an alleged $100,000 bribe? 2, USC is in the news almost daily, it seems, for yet another violation of some law or the contestation of somebody else's humanity. But unlike all the other cases, they didn't get caught by some LA Times investigation. No, USC walked this particular case involving a powerful black leader into the U.S. Attorney's Office. Who made that decision, and how and why was it made? 3, while all the focus is on the indictment of Donald Trump, are you paying attention to all the other high-profile black elected officials that are being targeted across the nation by the Justice Department? Joe Biden's Justice Department. I'll let you marinate on that for a second. The judge in one case involving a high-profile black elected threw the charges out and told the government to kick rocks. It doesn't matter who's in charge. The hunting season for black folk is always open. I do not purport to know what's next for MRT. What I do know is that his legacy of love and service to our community is intact. What I do know is that God can turn your shipwreck into a submarine. As for all the rest of us, be vigilant, be sober, be circumspect. Just because you don't believe in conspiracy theories don't mean they ain't after you. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Tavis Smiley. We, of course, welcome your comments.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio, KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're talking with iconic attorney Carl Douglas. And, One of the cases that keeps coming up with our listeners is the case of Jamal Shakir, the young man whose own uncle shot him, his uncle being a member of the LAPD, and young Jamal being part of a protest. I believe he was documenting it. What is the latest on that case?
Sure. That's the fascinating story of 24-year-old Jamal Shakir, who is the most intelligent, articulate young black man I have ever had the pleasure of speaking with in my entire life. On May 29th of 2020, he was protesting the George Floyd death for the first time in his life. While in the protest line, being a millennial, he was filming it, and he sees someone who he understands and identifies and recognizes as his uncle, who is directing others who have less than lethal weaponry, 40-millimeter launchers and beanbag shotguns, who to fire. His uncle is recorded on tape saying, "That's my nephew. I'm going to light his ass up if he doesn't get out of here." He's on tape acknowledging that's my voice saying that. And we say that when Jamal was talking about how their ancestors would be rolling over in his grave right now if he saw you up against us who are protesting, he makes a motion, and one of the cops next to him fires a beanbag shotgun that strikes Jamal in his hand while he's recorded. You hear him scream. The cell phone falls, and when he bends over to pick it up, he's shot again in his butt. He's targeted 2 times. The same protester was shot. He picks up his cell phone, runs away. Jamal now has permanent disfiguring injuries in his right hand. The brother, who's a publisher, who has his own production company, cannot now hold a 47-pound camera and operate it to do his own work. The brother who is out his own parents' pockets at 20 years old, who was a graduate of LaGrange College, and they opened up a new digital media master's degree program because this brother was so strong in that discipline. We face a trial in the middle of May in Los Angeles, and all the good people of Los Angeles should be made aware of Jamal Shakir versus the city of Los Angeles and Eric Anderson.
And so no settlement.
We had an effort just last week to try to settle the case. It was confidential, but I can say it ended sooner than we thought.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but we want to track this trial mid-May, Jamal Shakir versus
the city of Los
Angeles, another LAPD incident.
Correct.
Of course, the case of Dejan Kazee has gotten a lot of attention, but this is not LAPD. This is the LA Sheriff's Department.
Yes. In August of 2020, Mr. Kazee was riding while black down Budlong in South LA. He was riding about a half a mile short of where I was raised on 109th and Dinker. He knows that he's being followed. Cops are pursuing him with their guns out because he was riding his bicycle on the wrong side of the street. You see, in the hood, when you're riding, you want to be on the wrong side of the street so that nobody coming back of you and do damage to you. You want to see people as you're riding your bicycle. I know that. Dejan knows that. The cops know that as well. And when Dejan ran away from cops and they chased him with their guns drawn, a scuffle ensued. Something dropped from clothes that Dejan was carrying. It was a pistol that was dropped. And officers then opened up on Dejan 14, 16 times, 8 times in the back. There is video of the shooting, and you can tell just by the sound how Dejan was on his back when officers were still firing. You could see dirt blowing up from the ground as bullets hit his back. Officers have been examined about what happened, and it is clear that the shooting of Dejan Kazee was wrongful. And there's a trial this fall on behalf of the estate of Dejan Kazee against the County of Los Angeles seeking justice.
Get more on that case. And also, I want to get your thoughts about where we are. Are we making progress? We have a new sheriff in town, so to speak. We have some strong movement from the LA County Board of Supervisors. They now have the power to fire the sheriff. We got a new mayor, same chief. I'm curious to see how you feel about our progress right now. We're talking with attorney Carl Douglas, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
The Los Angeles Urban League and Parkside Economic Development Corporation are working to close the wealth gap between black and white households. B-Warp, the Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program's free virtual workshops will help your family acquire, gain, maintain, and pass down legacy wealth. Learn from the experts about making more with what you have, the Black history of money, joining the Smart Investors Club, preserving your assets in tough times, crypto, cash in or cash out, the wealthy mind and body. Register for this free series that could change your financial future at laul.org/BWAARP. Don't miss B-Warp, the Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program, every second and fourth Thursday in February, March, and April at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Register now at laul.org/BWAARP.
Person Lynn Law Office is your go-to attorney for criminal cases. That's why we support the right to a fair trial for Los Angeles Council Member Mark Ridley Thomas. Call me at 424-261-2075 if you're facing any criminal offenses.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar,
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Your bounce is back.
Our Weekly Los Angeles is the largest audited black newspaper in the state of California with a distribution of over 50,000 copies weekly. Pick up a copy every Thursday to get the latest news on African American communities of LA. You can also keep up with what's going on in Los Angeles and surrounding cities by going to www.ourweekly.com. The Our Weekly website is updated daily with the current news about us and for us. For your advertising needs, Our Weekly offers economical advertising packages to fit your budget. Feel free to call Our Weekly Los Angeles at 323-905-1300 or visit the website at www.ourweekly.com. Our Weekly Los Angeles, reporting news that matters to you.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Talking with attorney Carl Douglas just a few minutes before we pass the microphone off to Tavis Smiley, who follows me every day on the station. And we're going to call this the speed round because I got some quick questions for you. We had a listener who couldn't stay on who wanted to know what is the penalty for espionage, referring to the former president.
Oh, I'm sure it's up to life, certainly, but I don't think there's any chance that the former president would ever be charged with espionage.
And in the case of Mark Ridley Thomas, our city council member who was convicted last week, what do you give the chances, his chances on appeal or chances of a mistrial?
It saddens me and sickens me not only that he was prosecuted, but that he was convicted. I hope his experience does not tarnish the memory and the legacy of all the good that he has done to this community for his entire life. As a legal analyst, I don't think, while I'm not one who followed the trial closely, but I saw that there were as many, if not more, counts that he was found not guilty of than guilty. I know there were at least 2 African-American males that were on his jury. I do not think there is any great likelihood that he will be able to be successful on appeal, but I wish him all the best. And
what about progress? New sheriff in town, New mayor in town. Are we making progress?
As you know, Dominique, I have been on your show for each of the last 4 years, imploring your listeners to change the head of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I am therefore very hopeful that there will be a new reality. But it's also important to remember that progress turns at the speed of an ocean liner and not a speedboat. Progress moves like an ocean liner making a turn and not a speedboat. So while there is certainly a basis for hopefulness and encouragement because Robert Luna is now our new sheriff, it will take weeks, months, if not years, for there to be a new awakening that will filter down and that will impact the good people of Los Angeles.
Oh, I should have asked you sooner. I know you saw the case of the woman, the police association president from San Jose, who's now been indicted for dealing drugs. Oh, okay. Well, we'll talk about that next time you come. She's the grandma of the POA there, and she, it happened over the weekend. Indicted. Apparently, she was having fentanyl and OxyContin. Shipped to her home for 10 years, and she was like a drug queenpin.
Life never ceases to amaze me.
How do we keep track of you and all of the things that you're doing? You have so many cases, and as you've said, courts back in action now post-COVID, and so you have a lot of cases coming down one after another.
Yes, I am CEDESQ on all platforms. Please follow me on Twitter and Instagram.
CEDESQ, as in Carl E. Douglas Esquire.
Yes, ma'am.
On every platform. What can we do, or what should we know about Dijon Kazee? Another one coming up. You said Jamal Shakir mid-May. Dijon Kazee fall. Of course, we still, I don't know if we hope for a settlement because we like the families to get paid, but at the same time, maybe court is better in some ways because it forces people to face the facts of what happened.
I always prepare for trial, and I hope for a settlement, and we'll see what happens in both of those cases. But as we close, Dominic, it is always important, and I always implore your listeners two things. One, to register to vote and then to vote. But two, as importantly, because you are a registered voter, when that summons comes in the mail to take part in your civic duty of jury service, don't put it in the trash. Don't throw it away. Call up and serve on a jury. It will be an experience of a lifetime. We black and brown lawyers need more black and brown jurors serving on jurors today in Los Angeles.
Good reminder, important reminder. Every civil rights attorney I interview says that, and so clearly it's an important thing. We're celebrating around here because we have reached our landmark 1,000th podcast of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima. So if you missed today's episode and you're just catching the end with attorney Carl Douglas, go wherever you find your podcast and you'll find us there. Scroll through our app and you will find 1,000 episodes of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima, and we haven't even finished 2 years yet, so we are celebrating that, and we thank you so much for your support and for listening. And of course to you, Attorney Douglas, thank you for always being part of our First Things First team here on KBLA.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Tavis Smiley is up next. History is now, and we are making it together. I'm Dominique DiPrima. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. There's a disturbing trend on the border of children being dumped by the smugglers and left to Free State University